をしてくれるはずです。では、次のセッションスタートします。J さんです。よろしくお願いします。大きな拍手をお願いします。
Thank you very much. Before I get started, I actually would just like to give a hand to Hotagaki-san, who's put in a lot of work this week, I know, to get us started. So, 今週、Hotagaki-san とKinoさん、案内の社長がかなり時間をかけてこのプレゼンなんていう講演会を作りましたから、ちょっと握手しましょう。Let's give them a hand. Alright, so today I am going to talk about services and dependency injection in Drupal 8. To some of you that's not going to mean anything, and it probably won't at the end of this presentation either. But if you can just sit patiently through this presentation. So, my name is Jay Friendly. Jay Friendly と申します。I'm at Jaypan on Drupal.org and Drupal.stackexchange.com, Drupal.org と Drupal.stackexchange で Jaypan という名前で投稿しています。I'm an Acquia certified Drupal Grandmaster, which means I have the three Acquia certifications for Acquia certified developer, developer front-end specialist, and developer back-end specialist. So I cover Drupal as a whole. I can handle all parts of it, and I generally try to. I've been in Japan since 2000. I studied physics in university originally in Canada. I'm a Canadian. During that time, I studied some C++ programming, and it ended up pushing my life towards a programming style. So it wasn't anything I ever planned, but I ended up doing that. When I came here, I was teaching English. I did that for a while, and then I moved into management in the company I was working with, and I did that for a number of years. And then I got hired in a publishing company as their technical chief, and I did that for 6 years before starting Jaypan, focusing exclusively on web development. 私2000年に日本に来日しました。大学の時は物理の勉強で、その中でプログラムの勉強をしました。かなり好きだったっていうのですので、人生はプログラムのことになりました。2000年日本に来た時は英語の先生でした。子供の英語の先生。その時は中央出版の子供の英会話部で働いていました。かなり楽しい事件でしたが、それ1年半やって、それからマネージャーになりました。静岡地区のマネージャーとなりまして、スタッフが外国人のアフリカの人でもオーストラリアの人でも北アメリカの人でもたくさんあって、年齢は18歳から55歳まで、すごい幅が広い人間たちですから、かなり良い経験でした。難しかった。みんなはそれぞれ文化が違って、年齢も違って、喧嘩もたくさんありましたけど、それを直すときに、勉強になりました。で、それプログラムとは関係ないと思うんですが、結構ありました。なんていう、もういろいろな問題を修正するときは人間でもコードでも同じことに、連携することはありますから、良い経験でした。1年だけ日本に来る予定でしたが、それお母さんにも約束しました、母親。それも2001年に帰るはずでしたが、まだまだ日本ですから、かなり好きとなりました。I've been working with Drupal since 2007. 2000年からは Drupal を使っています。Right now I'm writing a book on coding in Drupal 8. It's kind of focused for Drupal 7 developers shifting to Drupal 8 because it went from procedural code to OOP code, which is, for me it was a daunting change. After working for so many years primarily in procedural code, it was a difficult transition to make. Fortunately, our lead developer comes from a Zen framework background, which is purely OOP and some really high-level OOP architecture, PHP architecture improvements. So he taught me how to code in that manner. So we were actually building Drupal 7 modules in a Drupal 8 in a PHP architectural manner. And then when I switched to Drupal 8, it turns out that we're doing the same things in Drupal 8. So for me, it was a much easier transition having that in-between step. But I know for many developers who haven't worked with OOP, it's a really how do I even go from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8? What is this? So I'm trying to write a book to help people like that move forward. I'm the owner of Jaypan. It's a company in Yokohama. Yokohama, for people who don't know, is basically it's not so far from here. If you look out the window, you could probably see it, but it's not even in the same prefecture. Our English site is jpan.com. Our Japanese site is jpan.jp. Jaypan specializes in high-performance AJAX JavaScript heavy applications. So I love JavaScript, and I like AJAX applications. So I like making things that work together and work fast. We do custom module development and theme development. So we use Drupal modules, of course, because every Drupal developer does. But we try to focus on building stuff a lot, building modules that do things. So rather than downloading modules to do stuff that the one module does 50 things, we'll build one module that does that one thing and then use other third-party modules in collaboration with that. We do some app development, and we do Drupal integration with outside technologies such as third-party JavaScript libraries, Linux programs, and multiple Drupal instances. We also do some technical consulting and translation. So I've worked with some quite big companies. You can actually see one of the buildings out the window. Working with companies who are working with companies from other countries. So for example, if a company in America is merging with a company in Japan, we handle a lot of the technological consulting in between that. So, an overview of today's program. すいません、最近の自己紹介は英語がメインでしたが、これから日本語も忘れないように頑張ります。でまずservices とは What are services? That's the first thing we're going to discuss. The next thing we're going to discuss is how are they created? Service はどうやって作りますか? And the difference between calling them procedurally and through OOP. Because in Drupal 8, there's actually some procedural code and some OOP code. And we're going to talk about dependency injection. あと最後に dependency injection というトピックを話させていただきます。So services とは What is a service? Service is, well, at a code level, it's a grouping of related functionality. コードのレベルで似たような機能のグループとなります。It's often used for CRUD, which for programmers is creation, update, and delete functionality. CRUD っていう作成編集、削除の機能をよくまとめています。It's also often used for loading and searching functionality. 検索とロードのファンクションもまとめてサービスとなることもあります。So for example, you might have load multiple, or load by some condition, load by user. だからユーザーのノードをロードするサービスは作ることができます。あと term, for example, taxonomy term. Taxonomy のタームもまとめて作成することができます。Or by author. Using services separates the entities and their data from the functionality around those entities. サービスを使えば、そのエンティティとそのエンティティでできることを分けることができます。So for example, in an entity, you'll have methods that manipulate the property, or sorry, the entity. エンティティの中ではそのメソッドがそのエンティティを変更するやつ。例えば ID をつける、名前をつける。So you can put the name into an entity, or you can put the ID of an entity into an entity with methods on that entity. Whereas a service does things with that entity. It loads the entity, it saves the entity, it deletes the entity. サービスというのはそのエンティティのプロパティを編集することではなく、そのエンティティを何かする、ロードする、削除する、保存するという機能をつけます。So let's look at a simple, this isn't a Drupal entity, it's just like a PHP concept entity. So we're going to look at a class that's a person. So a person, this is going to be a really simple one. It's got an ID, a unique ID for the person, and they've got a name. So we're going to have, in the entity, we're going to have methods that manipulate the entity. これシンプルなエンティティです。これ Drupal のエンティティではなく PHP の簡単なエンティティです。この同じような感じですからそれを強調します。でそのエンティティのファンクションではエンティティのプロパティを変更することができます。例えば ID を設定する。So we can set the ID of the entity with this function, or we can get the ID from this. And then we're going to have one for set name and one for get name. So these are all things that manipulate the entity itself. They're not things for doing things with entities. It's for a single entity. It manages it. And so then we have one here, populate. So we can dump data into it that's going to put the information into that entity. So next we're going to look at a service that deals with the entity. Last we were just dealing with a person entity. Now we're going to deal with the person service. 先ほどその person の entity を見ました。次は person service を見ましょう。person service ではエンティティをでいろいろなことができます。So we got our person service class, and we got a function save. This is pretty much common. Well, for every entity, it's going to have a function like this because if you, well, not everything, but if you don't have a save method, there's no way to save it. ほとんどのエンティティは保存する必要ありますから、そういう場合はこの save というメソッドが必要。And then we got one for update. So someone updates the person's name, we need to update that in the database. Then we got one for load. And so this one here, it's actually going to create a new person entity, and then it's going to populate the entity with contents that it loads from the database, and then it's going to return that entity. So anytime we want to get a new person or an existing person entity from the database, we're going to pass an ID to this function, the load function, and we're going to get back a fully loaded person entity. で、このロードのメソッドでは、データベースに保存しているパーソナルエンティティをロードするためにその ID を出してそれで完全なフルなパーソナルエンティティが出てきます。And then of course you need to be able to delete it as well. Well, maybe not always, but a little more entity. Services are not always built around data types. They can also be based around a functionality type. サービスはなんていうエンティティに関してだけではなく、ファンクショナリティの機能に関してのサービスもあります。例えば、a notification service、お知らせサービス。So, for example, we got a notification service. Now, this isn't based around any entity type. It actually sends emails. And maybe it sends push notifications to cell phones, mobile devices through Apple and Google. And it logs messages to be shown to the user at a different point. These are all things that notify a user. There's not one data type that this is built around, but it's a service for doing something. So this is a functionality-based service rather than an entity-based service. この例がエンティティに関してのサービスではなく、機能に関してだからこのお知らせサービスでは E メールを送信、Push Notification、iPhone とか Android にメッセージを送る Notification、あとメッセージをログする機能のサービス。Services can also call other services. So for example, the notification service calls an email service, it calls a push notification service, and it calls a logging service. So these things actually handle their functionality to themselves, but there's one wrapper service that does all three of them together. So core services. Drupal 8 has a lot of core services. Drupal 8ではたくさん core サービスはあります。で、その core サービスは core.service.yml というファイルに見ることができます。And so there's actually core.services.yml is where all the core services are loaded. So you can see this on the API page. So I'm just going to blow it up a little bigger there. And these are all services provided by core. There's a whole lot of them. I didn't count, but that's got to be what, 150 or so, 200? So Drupal 8 core comes with a lot of services. Core はたくさんサービスがもうすでについています。入っています。That's the API link. それは API のリンクで先を見てたページで、some common services よくあるサービスの例。We got the database service. So this is anytime you want to write to the database, read from the database. And this actually goes on and handles PDO, which does all the reading and writing, but it's the line between modules using the database and the database. The form builder service. So anytime you want to call a form, in Drupal 7, we use Drupal get form. In Drupal 8, we can use the form builder service to call a form. The current user service. So in Drupal 8, we had a global user object. But that was dangerous. It was really easy. I've helped people many times who have made a mistake and run through it and are overwriting that, and suddenly they're logged out and they can't understand why. This service protects us from doing that. It gives us the global user, which we can test against, but you can't write to it. And then entity query. If you want to do an entity query build, you can use the entity query service. And then the current path, you can get that from our service. これいろいろなコアによくモジュールデベロッパーとして使っているコアのサービスです。So how are they called? Let's look at this in an OOP method. So we're going to look at our person class again. これは OOP の形です。So また person のクラスを見ます。So we got a construct function. For people who are used to OOP, this is a function that's called anytime you create a new object of this class. So it gets called automatically, and you can see it gets a person service object to it. And we're going to save that to this class's person service property. And so then we can use this at any time, anywhere else in our class. When it's created, it automatically takes the person service and saves it to itself. And then when you're saving one, you use your person service that we've created here, that we've loaded with that, and we can save it. So it's going to call our service from our class. This is the OOP methodology. To register a service, サービスを投稿するためには module_name.services.yml ファイルで投稿っていう register 保存作ります。So this is an example of our person service in in our module named.services.yml. これは例です。So we've got the parameters. This is the class that where our service exists. これはそのサービスのクラスです。It's located at Drupal/person/service/person service. And then here we declare our service itself. So our service is going to be called person.service. 私たちが使っているサービスが person.service という名前で、何のクラスを使っているというのはこのクラスです。So this declares our service to Drupal as one that any other module can use, or you can use in your own modules. So now let's look at how it's called in a procedural method. This is the easier way to do it, but there's reasons not to do this that I'm going to get to after. 先は OOP でサービスの使い方を見せましたが、これからは procedural の使い方を見せます。procedural の方が簡単ですが、問題はあります。で、後でその問題を説明します。So we've got our save function. I just showed this in the last one where we saved it. This actually calls the service directly here. So this loads our service here. これは Drupal からサービスをロードする。さっき作った person service. And then it saves it. It's really easy. You can get it in one line. It's quick and easy to use. And often for many people, it'll be the way to go. But now we're going to talk about a thing called dependency injection. 次は dependency injection とお話をします。で、when a class needs a service, we inject it into the service when that class is created. I just showed that in the last one in the construct function. We actually gave it the service that we were going to use in that class. This is called dependency injection. 先ほど見せた通りにその construct というファンクションにそのクラスをロードするときにそのサービスをインジェクトする、挿入します。それでその後を使うことができます。And so then the service is available to the class when necessary. It keeps your code clean and modular if you use dependency injection. It's easy to see what's going on. It's easy to see exactly which services your class needs. And it makes it easier too if you want to delete that module at some point or that class at some point. You know exactly where everything's there. And it also prevents loading loops. Sometimes if you don't use dependency injection, you're loading things. Drupal 8 is pretty good with that. With other frameworks, it runs into a problem where you have things that are loading themselves, and it gets stuck in a loop. Drupal 8ではそういう問題ないんですけど、他のフレームワークでは dependency injection を使わなければ、そのローディングループとなります。それでもう、大きなバグとなります。And then dependency injection is required for unit testing. Unit testing というのは dependency injection が必要です。で、この後もっと説明します。So there's two ways to inject services with Drupal 8. And they depend on what you're loading. If you're loading we're going to look at the way you load a service that depends on another service after. First, we're going to look at injecting with a services container. So we're going back to our person class. もう一回 person クラスを話させていただきます。戻ります。So we've got our create function. This is actually called even before the construct function. And this loads our services for this class from we've got what's called the services container. で、このファンクションはさっきの construct のファンクションの前にコールするファンクションです。で、そのファンクションが we got the service container. サービスコンテナというアーギュメントをもらって、で、それからはこのクラスで使うサービスをロードします。So if we look here, from our container, we load our person service, and then we're going to return this. And so then here's our construct function, and you can see we've got our person service. So this gets loaded here, and then passed here. So construct でロードするサービスが、じゃないです。create でロードするサービスが construct のファンクションに出します。で、それでその property に保存します。The other way to load services, or to do dependency injection, is in the services.yml class. And so whenever you're giving a dependency injection to a service, this is where you declare your service. So this is instead of the create function I just showed. 今の見せ方がさっきの create のファンクションの代わりに使う dependency injection です。で、これはサービスが別のサービスに dependency がある場合はこのやり方でやります。で、arguments. We use the arguments for this. で、このサービスはデータベースのコネクションが必要ですので、これをつけます。それでこのサービスをロードするときに自動にデータベースのサービスが挿入されてロードします。So by doing this, this loads the database service automatically when we load our person service, and it injects the database service into our person service. So going back and looking at this at our person service, またperson service に戻ります。We've got our property of a database. Database という property があります。We've got a construct function, and the construct function, as I discussed, gets the database. 先ほど services.yml のファイルでこのデータベースを準備して、ここでこのクラスに保存します。And so then when you save your person, it uses the database. それで person を保存する場合は、この person を出して保存して、でこのデータベースを使ってデータベースに保存します。Okay, so why use dependency injection? なぜ dependency injection を使いますか? Unit testing, PHP unit. Oh, my time is coming down. I just got the notification from the back. PHP unit comes with Drupal 8. Drupal 8では PHP unit という testing system があります。And so the way this system works is you can test units of code. So a unit of code is actually a single class. And when you use unit testing, it doesn't bootstrap Drupal. It doesn't start up Drupal. Unit testing, unit testing は Drupal 8からは提供しています。で、unit testing の中では Drupal はブートストラップしない。起動しません。そのクラスだけのテスティングとなります。So global functions, such as functions that come from Drupal, are not available during unit tests because it's not bootstrapped. Bootstrapping されてないので、グローバルのファンクションが使えません。And so if you try to do a unit test on a class using a global, PHP unit crashes. それでグローバルのファンクションをユニットなんていうサービスの中で使えば、サービスだけじゃない他のクラスで使えばクラッシュとなります。そのテスティングをできません。そのファンクションがないんですから。And that's the end of my presentation. I got it in my 10 minutes. So does anybody have any questions? Or a clap? Yes. 以上です。Question back there.
Which method of dependency injection do you favor?
どちらの使い方の方が私がいいとは思ってますかという質問。Actually, it's not that I prefer either. They're used in different situations. So when you have a service that has a dependency injection, you use the arguments one, which was this one here. So anytime you have a service that has dependencies on other ones, you'll use this. Basically anything else, you'll use the create method. So it's not a preferred one, it's a depending on the situation one. Thank you. 他にありますか?
他に質問ありますか? はい、
Did you note any difference in performance when you use dependency injection instead of the regular way?
そのなんていうパフォーマンスに関してなんていう差が出てきましたか？その dependency injection に使うときか普通にprocedure で使うとき。I can't really answer that. I'm going to say no, but I went into it right away using dependency injection because, as I said, I came from the Zen framework way of doing things that use dependency injection. So I already knew that it had to be done. So when I started doing it, rather than using the procedural way, I actually figured out how this was done so that I could do it the proper way. So did I notice? No. Is there a difference? Maybe. I don't really know.
他に質問ありますか? 大丈夫ですか? はい、じゃあ質問大丈夫ですかね? はい、じゃあどうも J さんありがとうございました。